tunnel. Oh, I'm so sorry.
How's the elbow feeling?
It's all right, man. It's all right. I mean, taking it day to day. See how it goes.
How much were you able to do today at practice?
I didn't do much, non-contact, so got some shots up, really.
So are you expecting to come back tomorrow?
We'll see how it is tomorrow. See what we can do and see how it feels, honestly.
Jrue, when you watch the guys in Detroit, the way they competed shorthanded, how big of a night was that? You think as a group?
Man, it's big, but I feel like I've seen it done before. I've been out there and played with them when it's shorthanded, so I feel like that's what was expected out of us. And for them to kind of come out and play that way, and shorthanded, and even going to overtime when we felt like we kind of had that game in the bag in the fourth, just shows even more. So.
What's been the difference? You guys closing now? What's made the difference? You guys have played a lot better.
Honestly, I think it's time. And with time, you get more comfortable with each other. And from there, being out on the court, people get more healthy, and you just kind of see how the game goes. But I think a lot of it is just getting more comfortable in certain situations, especially down the stretch in close games where in the beginning we weren't really finishing. But over time, just being able to keep doing that and staying confident, anything can happen.
So the goal is still there to be in the top 8.
I mean, isn't that always the goal?
With Zion's return to a year and him being involved in practice more, how much has that kind of affected the group, just having them around more than knowing that pace?
Is he coming back soon?
I would hope so.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Nah, it's always good to have him around though. He's a dynamic type of player where we got a little bit of a chance to play with him, but he's still a guy who loves basketball and wants to be out there on the court with us. So just based off that, having that attitude, man, we want him to be with us. So, but him coming back and showing what he can do and jump and do all that, it's always fun. So hopefully we have him back soon.
You guys going to play a little 3-on-3 with him on the road. Player development guys did today. Did any of the player development guys get dunked on?
Nah, I don't think anybody that's stupid.
You guys obviously have a game tomorrow, but on Saturday you're playing the Clippers at home and you're playing on NBA Europe television. I think the last time you guys played them here, you had an exceptionally good game, as J.J. Redick did as well. What's the difference now? Is Kawhi going to be playing, or is he a difference maker at this point? He wasn't even playing that last game, and you guys have to do the stops.
Guarding as best as possible. We know what kind of talent he is and the talent that they have on that team. I'm not sure if Paul's going to be playing, so again, last time the first time they were without one of them, but that doesn't matter to us. We're going to go out there and guard and do what we're supposed to do. So always give ourselves a chance to win.
I know y'all don't like to have games carry over to the next, but the Utah loss the first time, very frustrating to have them back at home so quickly. Is there a extra motivation to kind of finish that job?
Man, I think it's a part of the game, really. I guess to us, we kind of see it as a playoff series. How much can you really put in between 4 or 5 games? But again, it was a close game. It came down to the wire, so I think to be able to kind of get another chance at it is a pretty good feeling.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, yeah.
Appreciate it, Drew.
Excuse me.
So I wanted to let everybody know, in light of all the speculation that's been going on out there and people frankly just taking blind guesses as to when Zion's going to come back, based on today's practice, which was not terribly intense because we're still somewhat of the walking wounded, we're going to continue to try to get him some reps in practice. We hope to have a slightly more intense practice on either the 17th or 19th. If all goes well from that, and assuming he is cleared by then, which he is not quite yet, our anticipation is he'll play his first game on the 22nd at home against San Antonio. This process has been one that's been really, really good. We've learned a lot more than we've probably taught him, frankly. But he's getting to the point where we actually think he's as ready as he believes he is. So everything's moving in the right direction. If there's any questions, I'll answer them. But
How frustrating has the speculation been? Because it does sometimes, it kind of points the picture back to the perception of the Pelicans as they used to be.
yeah, it's frustrating only from the standpoint of trust, with the player and with our family here internally. Those decisions weren't even reached until this morning when our medical team got together with myself, with Zion, and we sort of arrived at a place where we can tell where we are. So anybody that was guessing before wasn't getting it from anybody who actually knew. So that's really frustrating because the only people that really knew anything in the process were our medical team and the player. And so for us to have anybody say anything different, it certainly didn't come from our side because they weren't even in on conversations. So that was frustrated. The player obviously wasn't the reason for that either. So it felt very much like people just throwing darts, trying to take a stab at it. So.
How did you arrive at the 22nd? What was the reasoning there?
I think just based on where we're at in terms of timing, how far away he is, there's some league protocols in place from an injury standpoint, a return to play standpoint, where you can't just go from out to playing a game. And so as we look at the timeline and the likelihood for when he gets his best work and when we can put him in the best position moving forward, we just feel like that's the right time. Again, from the very beginning, practice dates have been complicated because of our schedule, and then you add to it as many injured bodies as we have. We've obviously brought the G League two-way guys here. Josh and Zylan have been fantastic. Yesterday, the work that Zion did was as good as I've seen to this point, better than he was in the preseason. So we feel like he'll be a bigger, better version of himself, a healthier version of himself moving forward, but it's just the timing of this has been difficult.
So what does he have to do, David, what kind of thresholds?
So, I think in terms of the tests that we've been asking him to pass and the things that we've been judging his progress by, there's several of them. Almost all of them are entirely objective and just numbers from when he was healthy previously to now. And in every objective measure, his numbers are better, quite frankly. There are a couple of those tests that are a little more subjective and a little more about the eye test. And in those tests, there's still things that we feel like since he's taken this long already, we've let him go through the process to the degree we have. And frankly, it's not let him. We put him through the process. If we've taken this much time, we want it to look right when we let him go.
Is it too soon to know what his minutes restriction will be once he comes back?
Yeah, he won't. We won't do a minutes restriction, and this is something that, in general terms, we sort of philosophically disagree on. I think it's not about a hard number. It's about what the bursts need to look like. It's what you're measuring him by. So when you're returned to play from a serious injury, it's not going to be a number. It's going to be he's going to play in a limited number of bursts, and you're going to judge those all fairly subjectively in terms of what he looks like.
The team's playing a lot better, so I imagine, it's almost like making a mid-season acquisition, getting a player of his caliber in here, and how can that just completely help you if he's healthy and he's able to do all these things with the burst and everything?
Yeah, certainly if we're healthy around that return, it'd be great. I think you've seen when we're healthy, we're pretty good, and we can lock in and play really well against some very good teams. And unfortunately, Derek Favors' absence is the one we've noticed the most profoundly. It's because Fave, in addition to Zion, takes away two starting front court players, so your depth in the front court becomes problematic. But again, if we can get guys back sort of one by one, and have a full crew around him, I think it'll be a lot of fun to get to see.
You're talking to these coaches and players. Can you kind of measure the anxiousness of trying to get Zion back and just this, the last few months of is he going to be there, how close he is? Can you kind of measure how both players and the coaches are?
I don't think our players had anxiousness at all because they know that when it's time, he's going to come back. I think there's a great deal of trust in that sense relative to the players. I think from a coaching perspective, the anxiousness has been more related to the fact that they had to play a game the other night without 6 of our top 8 rotational players, you thought, coming into the season. So I think that's really complicated from a coaching perspective. So certainly their anxiety level's a little higher. They have to find a way to doctor up what we have and win a game in that particular situation, and obviously they did, because I think the team has a great deal of grit and toughness that they've learned now what it takes to win. We're sort of manifesting more winning habits. But the coaching anxiety has certainly been higher because they just never know who they're going to have right now from day to day.
Obviously, a lot of the focus is on when he's coming back, but once he is back, what's it going to look like as far as you guys managing him the rest of the season and making sure he's healthy all the way till the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a sustaining health standpoint, you're certainly going to treat him differently. His return to play protocol will be such that, I don't think we're going to want him to play back-to-backs by way of example. But we'll just see. We'll have to see what it looks like. Again, subjectively, there are some things that come into play in this, and his mechanics are a big part of that. And watching the way he's going about his business is going to have a great deal to do with what we think from day to day. It's not like we can objectively say what's going on in there, so we're just going to have to judge what it looks like. But I really believe very strongly he is a radically improved physical version of himself in ways that, frankly, we took the extra time to ensure.
Did you ever consider not playing him this year?
No, and he never considered it either. The nature of his injury wasn't such that was what was called for. Other players that have had to make that determination, I think in almost every case they had a much more significant surgery. Blake Griffin fractured a kneecap. That's a different issue. Zion knew from the very beginning that he was going to be able to play, and he wanted to play. I mean, he's told you he hasn't been overly happy with me that he hasn't played yet. So it was never a thought that he wasn't going to play.
When you talk about him from the mental standpoint of not being able to play, we know he's a competitor. We also know he's a team guy. But how do you deal with him and just trying to not allow him to try to do too much too early? Yeah,
and I think he'll talk to you all at some point this week. That's a good question for him. I think from my perspective, he's 19. And to not be able to play the game he loves would be frustrating, I think, if any of us were in that position. And you've certainly seen throughout this process, the closer he gets, the better his spirits are. It's a tough time for an athlete when you're non-weight bearing, by way of example. Those are some really difficult times. And then as you start to ramp up and you get smart, you get close enough to taste it, then you start to feel it a little different. So I think he's certainly in a really good space right now and excited about it. But you'd have to ask him where he's been.
Well, we'll talk about it. The teams won 9 of 13. How impressed have you been with their cohesion, their development of the younger players, and even with the way that Alvin has dealt with the injuries?
Well, I think one of the blessings for us in disguise in all of this, and we said it during the surgery, was that we were going to get to see some things that we wouldn't see otherwise. And frankly, that Zion would deal with recognizing he's not invincible. And that's not a bad thing early in the process either. So I think there's been a lot of positives that come out of this, but certainly the development of some of the younger players on our roster and some of the guys that weren't going to get an opportunity perhaps if we were fully healthy. And that extends beyond Zion's absence. I mean, our coaches have had to do a lot with a makeshift lineup often. And I think they've done a good job in terms of bringing good habits to bear even when we didn't have bodies. So I think it's been good for us to grow a little bit.
Do you think it helps to have it for you as far as just dealing with all of this Zion, the hype that surrounds him, and having to manage a whole team, but you're also fighting this kind of feels like every day this whole season?
Yeah, it's not frustrating from that perspective. The Zion phenomenon, as it were, is really interesting because I think we saw some of this even in Detroit when we practiced the other day. Everywhere he goes, there's a level of attention paid that's just unique, and we were prepared for that. I think our players were prepared for that, so I don't think that's really had any bearing on much of anything. I think where the frustration lies is just around sort of the irresponsibility sometimes of reports that are made. To ever go live with anything that says something is happening without actually talking to me or someone on our medical team is just, it's surreal to me, and I don't understand why we're in this position now. Actually, you know what? I lied. I do understand because clickbait's important, but this whole thing has been a series of that, and that's been frustrating.
Considering where the team is after 41 games and all the injuries and things that have happened, how do you evaluate them at the midpoint?
The team as a whole?
Yes.
I don't know that we know enough to know that. Mm-hmm. You know, it'd be disingenuous to say I have a good feel for what we are. Frankly, a lot of the pieces we have are going to look better in the presence of Zion. We built the team knowing what it was going to look like in that way. And in the absence of Derek Favors for basically what amounted to a month of games, I think you could see we were just searching. So what we're all optimistic about is that as we come down the stretch, we're going to be healthier, playing against a schedule that's not quite as difficult. You know, for our coaches to have to field a team with the most injuries, most games lost due to injury, and the toughest schedule against at one point. I know that was the case when we were in Philadelphia. That's tough. And I think we just need to find out what we're capable of being. I think the thing that's the most exciting about our group is you can tell we've got a lot of really good young talent. We've got veterans that love being with that young talent, and I think we have a group that really likes each other. During the times that we weren't playing well, we didn't really fracture in a way that I think we could have, and so I think that makes us optimistic that when we're healthy, we can be pretty good.
It's interesting that you brought up Blake Griffin when you compared Zion to this. What I remember about Blake is that he needed to get leaner, but they were worried that he was going to lose some of his power that he had shown that made him the #1 draft pick. Is that how does Zion keep that power that he learned?
Yeah, so I don't think in the Blake case it was necessarily a leaner situation that helps him share anything with Zion. It's the amount of torque they generate. They're so big and strong, and they're so explosive. They just generate more torque than other people. It's physics. So I think in terms of the similarities there are some in terms of what you look at. I think from our standpoint, the thing that made it stand out, and the reason I mentioned Blake's name is simply that. It's really not anything about the lean part. It's really more about how do you give a guy that manifests muscle as quickly as he does the amount of control he needs while still keeping him light enough to not generate more torque. So that's been a balance. That's been a dance for sure.
Is he doing well with that, though?
Yeah, very well.
One of the benefits of him being out this long is that you can focus on a lot more than just the knee. So how much time has been spent on how he runs, how he jumps, how he moves around, just to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, a lot. And we've talked already about the concept of teaching him how to walk again, which is sort of preposterous. But really, what it is just the whole kinetic chain. You're addressing everything. You're addressing ankle flexion, and then you're addressing knees and hips and back and everything else. And I think what's happened is his overall kinetic chain is in a much better position now because of this, and it starts with the fact that he's more flexible. And then once you make somebody more flexible, you have to give them the strength to control that flexibility. And that's been a dance, it really has been. But he's now able to do some things physically he wasn't able to do before. Particularly because of the amount of flexion he has in his ankles and his hips. So he's in a good space.
So how much does it help to have I guess for him to have a target date, maybe something to look for instead of maybe this week, maybe next week now, but
so
I can look at something.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andrew. While he would have liked to have played already, he was very grateful we were going to put a target on it. Because I don't think he gets asked anything by anybody anymore other than when are you going to play. So I think just ending that is probably a blessing. But again, it's really just a matter of we're close enough now to see what it looks like and to sort of theoretically land on this day will look like this, the next day will look like that.
So no back-to-backs for sure, right?
I would suspect when he comes back, again, I'm not our medical team, and we'll get into it deeper, but I would suspect that as he comes back, that's probably not something that will happen. Certainly not quickly. Now, the blessing is we don't play another back-to-back until I think the 3rd and 4th of March. He'll have a lot of minutes under his belt by then, so we'll see what it looks like.
How reflective of this process is it that, Zion's often says, people say about him, he's an unprecedented player. I mean, do you think this process has reflected that there really has never been a guy that heavy who can jump like that, and that kind of explains the caution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, we were talking about Blake, it's all related to the amount of torque you generate, how much power we have to help you be able to control, and how do you give someone the ability to control all of that from a strength standpoint without continuing to get thicker. And so, yeah, it's been a delicate process for our medical team, and I think they've done a really, really good job. And I think Zion's done a remarkable job in his work rate and the things he's done as well.
So he's not torn any Nikes at the seams anymore.
No, but I will say Jordan has done a remarkable job of reworking and re-engineer what they do around him for sure.
Aside from the speculation, can you understand why fans are a little confused when the original timetable was 6 to 8 weeks and there was no setback, and now we're talking 13 plus?
Sure. Yeah, I get that. And I'm appreciative of that. And at the same time, my job isn't to stick to the initial timeline. It's to put him in the best position to succeed. And so I get the frustration of it. I'd also hope we have a trust level right now that says, we're going to do the right thing for the kid long term, and that's what we made the determination to do.
With the trade deadline approaching, how do you sort of see this team? I mean, I know you've said before you don't want to be a buyer or you don't want to be a seller. You want to stay competitive. Has anything changed as far as just playing better in the last few weeks, and how do you kind of approach that coming up?
Nothing's changed relative to playing better in the last couple of weeks. What we really want to see is what it looks like, and that part has been somewhat complicated. Again, as I said, you never even know who we're going to have from day to day somewhat. So it's been hard to really get a grasp on who we are, but more importantly, if we were going to be a buyer, what would we get that's better than what we already have? That's not an easy answer when you can't see the whole thing together. So we're hopeful that we have some time pre-deadline to see that. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Go to the list.
Set, is that, I guess, a little bit more relief just in terms of this whole process of when he's coming back, fielding those questions now that we have a somewhat definitive date?
Well, I just think it'll be great when he walks out on the court and play, and then, that'll be the end of that. And then what happens after that is that we can kind of get him up to speed on everything and go from there. But, obviously it's not going to be one of those deals where he steps out and plays 35 minutes. The first few games are that he plays. So, but just to have a date, I think is good, and it eliminates a ton of the questions, I think.
Does it help at all for you as far as planning purposes? How you're going to set the rotations, his minutes, all that kind of stuff. Having a date in mind now.
No, as far as the minutes and everything, that will be done before he even walks out on the court. So, as far as the other things, I mean, obviously putting him out there and seeing where he is and seeing what needs to be improved on or what he has to get better at. That's going to be just a process that's going to take time, and then obviously to figure out rotations and the best fit as far as the 5 guys out there with him. I mean, the 4 guys out there with him, and a particular group. That's all going to take a little time also.
And I'm assuming today he went through 5-on-5 again.
He did. You know, the thing that's been the toughest is that we just hadn't had practice days, if you think about it. So we hadn't had those days where we can amp everything up and have him participate in the practices. The physicality of it and all of that right there, because we just hadn't had the practice time. And if you take into effect all the other guys that we kind of got banged up and injured, that's been a factor too. So, but just to have a target date, I think is a good thing, and we'll go from there.
With everything that's happened and the Zion thing, you guys have become a lot better. What's been the difference?
Oh, I just think defensively we've been much better. We've been much better defensively. We've really managed our turnovers, and anytime we have low numbers in those 2 categories, we seem to have played well, and I think we've shot the basketball better. We had a horrendous run there for about 4 or 5 games where we just didn't shoot the ball at all, and I think we've gotten back because I think we've created better shots, and I think we've stepped up and made shots.
Where are you guys with the rest of the injury crew? Jrue, B.I.,
a lot of those guys are just kind of day-to-day things, and they'll go through a practice or go through a shoot around and then come to the arena and do their typical pregame workout and then make a decision from there. So it's not anything that you definitely count out right now, or you definitely say that they're going to play. So it literally is a day-to-day thing.
Well, you have a game tomorrow, but you guys are playing on European television, featured on European television Saturday against the Clippers. You beat them here the last time. You're playing them here. What was the difference? And I know it's going to look like a different team because Kawhi didn't play. Maybe Paul.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a factor right there.
Yeah. So can you talk about?
Oh no, I just think they're a very good basketball team. Obviously, Kawhi. You're talking about a guy that's been MVP in 2 finals, so he makes a huge difference when he's out on the floor, offensively and defensively. 43 points in 29 minutes last night is pretty efficient, I think. So. With that team, though, you just have to get them on the move the basketball. But it's not anything that we really kind of looked at. That we've got a team in front of us right now that have won 14 out of 15 games. So really all of our energy is directed at Utah right now. And we'll have plenty of time that we can sit down and look at the Clippers and see what we need to do there.
And Griff said going through this process has allowed Zion to become a much better physical version of himself. What have you kind of seen in the moments you've seen him on the court, how he's moving around, those type of things?
Well, like I said, we've not had enough practice days, where we can gear it up for 5 straight days and look at him. But, obviously he's an explosive guy, and, that's pretty evident when he's practicing in some situations. But, the big thing to me is that, being in basketball shape and, just the feel of the game and things like that, which, he's got, a great feel for the game. But we got to keep in mind, guys, he's never played an NBA game. He played preseason games, which, doesn't count really. So he hadn't played an NBA game. And so this is, when he walks out there, that'll be the first time he played. So I think we got to also understand that it's going to be an adjustment period. It has been an adjustment period for anyone in that situation.
It's almost like making a mid-season trade and just getting someone like that.
Well, that is, because it's going to be obviously, being able to, work him into the rotations and figure out, like I said, the best 4 guys to be out there with him. I mean, it's something obviously that we've thought about and looked at and experimented some in the preseason, but this is really completely different than the preseason.
You've learned so much about your team because of the injuries. At the same time, do you wish you didn't know so much because of the injuries?
It is. I mean, I will never say it is what it is. Okay, but but I mean, obviously, that's the way we've operated, and injuries are a part of the game. So I just think you have to, place guys in situation and experiment and figure out what's going to be the best for this team. I think what is proven to us is that we have guys that we have a deep bench that have stepped up. I think, the way Frank has played and putting Nikola in the game and having him and start him and have him do what he did, it allows an opportunity to understand that we have guys that can step up and do it.
Would you agree Zion is in better shape now than he was preseason?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. But that being said, there's still nothing like getting on the basketball court and playing. And so you can be in great shape from a treadmill or but until you get out there and you actually are in what everyone can, I guess refer to as basketball shape, you're not going to know that until you actually play in the games.
And you always talk about your experience in the league, 31 years. Have you experienced anything quite like the Zion hype and the anticipation and kind of everyday questions about what's going on with him when he's coming back? This whole experience over the past few months.
No, and I mean, and it's warranted. I think for the type of player he was, and what he did in college, and so everybody's anticipating that, and we anticipated it also. We just thought that it would be much earlier, but. As I said, I think everyone has to understand that this is going to be something that takes time. It's not going to be, this instant thing. I just think that, to adjust to this league and understand, it's happened to a lot of guys. If you go back and look at Kobe's number, his rookie year, and things like that, it's not, it's a tough situation. I'm sure he'll handle it. I'm sure he'll be very good at it. But it will be an adjustment period. All right.
Thank you.
Coach.